He openly ridiculed her lack of employment before his associates, oblivious to the fact that she owned the corporation that employed them all. Serafina Bellwether remained composed throughout another evening filled with their harsh jests. "Can't even secure an entry-level position," her husband, Victor Sterling, chuckled, raising his glass in a toast with his colleagues. The situation presented a stark contrast. Serafina had engaged the recruitment agency responsible for hiring each man present. The following day, that same agency would assist her in terminating their employment. The cool surface of the crystal tumbler rested against her palm as she observed them from the far side of their lavish penthouse living room in downtown Metropolis. 5 men, clad in expensive suits, occupied senior executive positions at Apex Innovations. Each had been selected by Serafina herself, operating through a network of shell corporations and specialized hiring firms. Victor, her husband of 8 years, and their vice president of operations, led the derisive commentary. "Recall her attempt to interview at Apex," Victor elaborated, loosening his designer tie. "It would have been quite the spectacle to witness." Unbeknownst to him, that particular interview had been Serafina's quarterly assessment of the middle management, meticulously arranged through her complex web of holding companies. She founded Apex Innovations 12 years prior, before her path ever crossed with Victor's. The company represented her primary focus, a form of vindication after witnessing her father's small enterprise devastated by corporate acquisition tactics. "At least she demonstrates persistence," remarked Gregory Thorne from marketing. "How many rejections has it been this month?" "Lost track," Victor smirked, reaching for the 30-year-old single malt, a bottle Serafina had purchased. The scotch, like everything else within the residence, the artwork adorning the walls, the imported furnishings, even the luxury timepiece on Victor's wrist, was financed by the company he believed had declined her application. Serafina took another measured sip of water, maintaining her well-practiced facade of quiet embarrassment. This was the same demeanor she had adopted upon first meeting Victor at a high-profile charity fundraiser. By then, difficult experiences had taught her that professional success often attracted opportunistic individuals. 3 prior relationships with men who viewed her merely as a means to a luxurious lifestyle had instilled a sense of caution. Consequently, upon meeting Victor, she conducted a social experiment. She portrayed herself as a modestly successful freelance consultant, operating an older vehicle and residing in a small apartment. Initially, Victor appeared supportive. "You will find your place," he had assured her during their early courtship. "Just keep persevering." However, shortly after their marriage and his move into what he perceived as their shared mansion, his true nature emerged. Success seemed to alter him, or perhaps it merely exposed his underlying character. "Hey, darling," Victor called out, his tone laced with feigned sympathy. "Perhaps consider the coffee shop down the street? Reports indicate they are hiring baristas." His words were met with further amusement from the group. Serafina manufactured a faint smile, adhering to her predetermined role. Internally, she was mentally reviewing the extensive documentation compiled by her private investigators over the preceding year. The evidence included records of unauthorized meetings with rival firms, significantly inflated expense claims, and a consistent pattern of minor corporate information leaks that invariably seemed to coincide with gains in Victor's personal investment portfolio. "I believe I will retire upstairs," she announced quietly, embodying the persona of a discouraged spouse. "Significant day tomorrow. Another interview." "Don't wait up, sweetheart," Victor responded casually. "We are celebrating Donovan's promotion. It might be a late evening." Donovan represented her most recent strategic placement within senior management. The following day, he would be tasked with documenting their alcohol-fueled conversations, adding further substantiation to the accumulated evidence. Within the confines of her private study, secured against the sounds of their revelry, she positioned herself behind her desk. A concealed wall panel retracted smoothly, unveiling her secure command center. 3 large monitors activated, displaying real-time operational data from Apex Innovations' global network, a significant enterprise constructed through years of meticulous planning and stringent non-disclosure agreements. Her secure phone vibrated. A message arrived from Isabel Moreau, her most trusted executive and one of the few privy to her actual identity. Final documentation prepared, board members informed, tomorrow's meeting schedule confirmed. A slight smile formed on Serafina's lips as she contemplated the carefully planned revelation. The board had always known her solely as Serafina Bellwether, the elusive founder communicating via encrypted video conferences. Tomorrow, they would encounter their chief executive officer in person for the first time, not as the enigmatic figurehead, but as Victor Sterling's purportedly unemployable wife. Her fingers brushed against the stack of termination documents positioned on her desk. These were prepared not only for Victor, but for every member of his social circle present that evening. Each document was substantiated by months of verified evidence, meticulously reviewed by their corporate legal team, ensuring their incontestability. The distinct sound of shattering glass emanated from the living room below, followed by loud, unrestrained laughter. There was a time when such blatant disregard for her residence would have provoked anger. Now, it merely constituted another data point for the record: inappropriate utilization of company assets for personal recreation. She closed her eyes, allowing the steady drone of the computer servers to fill the silence of her private study. The following day promised seismic shifts within Apex Innovations, but for the moment, she absorbed the stillness preceding the inevitable confrontation. Paternal wisdom echoed in her memory. True influence wasn't wielded by the loudest voice, but through calculated observation and precise timing. That moment had arrived. Later, the sounds of Victor Sterling and his associates departing reached her study. Their hired drivers, discreetly employed by Serafina Bellwether herself, were instructed to activate dashboard cameras, recording the executive's level of intoxication. This footage would serve as supplementary evidence for their personnel files. Serafina changed into simple nightwear, attire consistent with the modest persona she had maintained for years. It represented the final night of this elaborate charade, while she would awaken as Victor's ostensibly underestimated spouse. By day's end, her true identity as Serafina Bellwether, CEO of Apex Innovations and the architect of their imminent dismissal, would be revealed. From her bedroom window, she watched the vehicles carrying Sterling and his cohort merge into the metropolis night traffic. Within 12 hours, they would report to their offices, nursing hangovers, entirely unaware of the corporate upheaval about to commence. The anticipation of the day's planned events brought a calculated expression to her face as she prepared for rest. The morning unfolded according to a meticulously detailed schedule. Serafina awoke before Victor, observing his difficulty managing his hangover as he hastily readied himself for what he believed would be a standard workday. He remained oblivious to the fact that she had already entered the Apex Innovations headquarters building significantly earlier. At precisely 6:30 a.m., Serafina utilized a service entrance, clad in a deliberately plain navy business suit acquired from a mid-range department store, a significant deviation from her customary high-fashion wardrobe. Isabel Moreau met her in the basement security control room, far from potential observation. "All systems are operational," Isabel confirmed quietly, handing Serafina a standard visitor's identification badge. "The initial interview is scheduled for 9 a.m. in Human Resources. Victor's team commences their regular morning briefing concurrently. Donovan will ensure their engagement." The visitor's badge, clipped to her blazer, felt incongruous. It identified her as Angela Martinez, interview candidate. For years, Serafina had overseen her corporation through secure video feeds and detailed reports. However, this final phase required direct involvement. It presented an opportunity to assess firsthand the extent of the reported unprofessionalism and potential misconduct. She positioned herself in the main lobby, arriving intentionally an hour ahead of schedule, adopting the posture of an anxious applicant eager to make a positive impression. The uniformed security officer at the front desk afforded her only a cursory glance, preoccupied with greeting the influx of executives arriving for what would be their final day of employment at Apex. At 8:45 a.m., she observed Victor Sterling stride confidently through the lobby, failing entirely to recognize her seated nearby, ostensibly absorbed in reading material, ironically, the company's own annual report. Ms. Martinez? The human resources representative, a man named Thomas identified from personnel records as competent yet overly deferential to senior management, appeared precisely on schedule. Please accompany me. The elevator ascent to the HR department floor was punctuated by generic, pre-scripted small talk regarding favorable weather conditions and manageable morning traffic, topics aligning with corporate communication guidelines Serafina herself had implemented. Employees exchanged polite nods with the woman they presumed was merely another job applicant. Thomas escorted her through the open-plan office space, a design she had personally approved years prior. "We will commence with a brief skills evaluation," he explained, followed by a panel interview involving several team leaders. His tone possessed a subtle note of condescension, often reserved for candidates predetermined for rejection. The skills assessment itself was rudimentary, involving basic coding exercises she could have completed effortlessly. Serafina deliberately introduced minor errors, maintaining the facade of a nervous candidate. Through the conference room's glass partitions, she could observe Victor and his associates engaged in their morning meeting, sharing laughter, likely, she surmised, at the expense of another applicant. "Well," Thomas stated after reviewing her intentionally imperfect assessment results, "this presents some points for discussion." His hesitation was palpable. "Let us proceed to the panel interview." The conference room selected for the interview offered panoramic views of the metropolis skyline, a vista Serafina typically enjoyed from her private executive office situated 20 floors above. 3 mid-level managers were seated inside, each displaying an air of detached superiority. Serafina recognized each individual from their employee files, possessing knowledge of their compensation, performance metrics, and confidential personnel matters. "So, Ms. Martinez," the first interviewer initiated, neglecting formal introductions, "the records indicate a period of unemployment?" "Yes," Serafina responded, modulating her voice to convey slight uncertainty. "The current job market has presented challenges." "And what specific qualifications lead you to believe you are suitable for a role at Apex Innovations?" the second interviewer inquired, barely diverting his attention from his mobile device. Serafina then began to deliver her carefully rehearsed narrative, outlining fictitious skills and experiences tailored for the persona of Angela Martinez. The pre-prepared narrative, a blend of genuine credentials obscured by feigned urgency, was delivered. With each fabricated response during the panel interview, Serafina Bellwether observed the interviewers becoming increasingly dismissive. Their judgment was clearly predetermined, mirroring the treatment countless other qualified applicants had likely received for failing to meet their biased criteria. Through the glass partition of the conference room, Victor Sterling was seen passing by. He registered her presence, paused, then visibly smirked while retrieving his mobile phone. Seconds later, the phones belonging to the interviewers vibrated concurrently. Serafina understood, without needing visual confirmation, that Victor was disseminating messages regarding his wife's purportedly embarrassing attempt to secure employment within the company. The remainder of the interview proceeded as an exercise in corporate incivility, Subtle insults were exchanged through glances, accompanied by poorly masked yawns. Serafina mentally cataloged each microaggression and every violation of Apex Innovations' established human resources protocols, all while sustaining her performance as a hopeful, albeit nervous, job seeker. "Thank you for your time," Thomas, the HR representative, stated finally, his tone unequivocally signaling the end of the process. "We will contact you." As Serafina walked towards the elevator bank, she overheard Victor Sterling's voice emanating from around a nearby corner. "Unbelievable! That was your wife? Truly desperate. Did you observe her suit? Likely sourced from a discount store." She continued walking, the sound of their ensuing laughter echoing behind her. Within her handbag, her personal secure communication device vibrated. Incoming messages from Isabel Moreau. Board members were reportedly arriving ahead of schedule. The corporate legal team was prepared. Security personnel were positioned for escort duties. The final act of her undercover operation was imminent. Serafina discreetly entered a nearby women's restroom, proceeding to the final stall where Isabel had previously concealed a garment bag. Inside awaited Serafina's actual attire: a meticulously tailored designer suit, expensive high heels, and the official CEO security identification badge, an item she had never previously displayed publicly within the building. As she transitioned from Angela Martinez, the unsuccessful applicant, to Serafina Bellwether, Chief Executive Officer of Apex Innovations, the echoes of their recent mockery lingered. Within 30 minutes, she planned to enter the main boardroom, not as a petitioner, but as their ultimate authority figure. She performed a final check in the mirror, adjusting the pearl necklace inherited from her mother. Stepping out of the restroom, she presented herself as Serafina Bellwether within her own corporate headquarters for the first time. Employees nearby exhibited visible surprise, attempting to reconcile the confident, powerfully dressed executive before them with the unassuming interviewee they had observed moments earlier. Their stares were noted but disregarded. The primary event was yet to unfold. The distinct sound of her designer heels clicking against the polished marble flooring announced her progression towards the executive level. Employees hastily moved aside, their expressions a mixture of confusion and recognition as they processed her transformed appearance. Whispers rapidly circulated. Reports of the seldom-seen CEO's physical presence spread swiftly through internal corporate communication channels. Serafina utilized the private executive elevator, the existence of which had long been a subject of speculation for Victor, installed exclusively for the CEO's use. During the ascent, a text message from Isabel confirmed the status. Board members were assembled, Victor and his team remained occupied in their conference room briefing, and security personnel were on standby. The elevator doors opened directly into the antechamber adjoining the main boardroom. Through the frosted glass panels, the silhouettes of the board members were discernible. All were briefed on the impending events. However, Serafina had scheduled a prior engagement. She turned left, proceeding towards the executive conference room where Victor Sterling and his close associates were currently celebrating perceived successes. Positioned unobtrusively in the corridor shadows, she could clearly overhear their conversation through the partially open door. "You should have witnessed her expression during that interview," Victor was stating, his voice infused with the familiar arrogance Serafina had grown to recognize. "My own wife, genuinely believing she could secure a position here. What's the next step? Attempting to become CEO?" His comment elicited boisterous laughter. "A classic instance of inflated self-perception," Gregory Thorne from marketing contributed. "Recall her unsolicited advice regarding the major client account during your birthday celebration?" "Oh, that was remarkably out of place," another voice interjected, "instructing us on restructuring client approaches as if possessing any functional knowledge of this industry." The irony was palpable. The strategy for that specific major client account had originated from Serafina herself, disseminated through intermediaries, ultimately saving Apex Innovations millions and securing 3 additional significant contracts. Should we inform her directly about the interview outcome or delegate that task to HR? Victor inquired, prompting another wave of laughter. It was the opportune moment. Serafina stepped decisively into the doorway, her presence interrupting the morning gathering. The laughter abruptly ceased. "Actually," she stated, her voice resonating with the authority cultivated over 12 years of corporate leadership, "I believe I will convey that information personally." The visible shock on their faces was immediate and profound. Victor's coffee cup halted mid-motion, his facial expression betraying disbelief as he struggled to reconcile the appearance of his wife with the commanding presence she now projected. What are you doing here?" he stammered. "And attired like the CEO of Apex Innovations?" Serafina completed his sentence, stepping fully into the room. "Precisely like that, as it happens." Gregory Thorne initiated a nervous laugh, which quickly subsided as no one else joined in. Donovan, her strategically placed executive, was already discreetly collecting his belongings, a knowing look on his face. "This is a restricted access floor," Victor attempted, trying to reassert control. "Security will arrive momentarily." "They are already present," Serafina responded calmly, as 2 uniformed security officers materialized behind her, "though not for the purpose you assume." She retrieved her secure phone and initiated a single command transmission. With a decisive command sent via her secure device, every display screen within the executive conference room simultaneously activated. A single, stark document materialized. The original incorporation articles for Apex Innovations. Prominently displayed were the signature and official photograph of one Serafina Bellwether. Her voice, now devoid of any prior pretense, cut through the stunned silence. "Serafina Bellwether," she declared, observing the dawning comprehension, the sheer disbelief contorting their features. "Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Apex Innovations, or as some of you might know me," her gaze fixed on Sterling, Victor's supposedly unemployable wife. An almost physical silence enveloped the room. Reports indicate Sterling's complexion shifted rapidly from pallor to a sickly hue, his eyes flicking frantically between the woman standing before him and the undeniable evidence branding his wife of 8 years as the ultimate proprietor of the very empire he frequently boasted of constructing. Sources within the room report Sterling whispering, "This is impossible. You're merely—" Bellwether interrupted sharply. "Merely what, Victor? Your wife? The individual incapable of securing even a basic entry-level role?" She moved with purpose to the head of the conference table, her table, and took the CEO's chair. She posed a direct question to the assembled group. "Describe the sensation of discovering you have spent years deriding your own employer." Gregory Thorne reportedly attempted to rise abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Remain seated," Bellwether commanded, her tone halting his movement instantly. "None of you are departing just yet." Another command from Bellwether's device prompted the screens to shift. Now displayed was a curated compilation of incriminating evidence, security camera footage, intercepted email communications, audio recordings. Years of their callous jokes, mockery, and unprofessional conduct were replayed in sharp detail. "A fascinating management approach has taken root here," Bellwether remarked coolly, watching their visible discomfort. "Fostering an environment characterized by bullying, discrimination, and harassment. Was it genuinely believed such behavior would go unnoticed? That the treatment of individuals perceived as subordinate was inconsequential?" Witnesses state Victor Sterling attempted an appeal, adopting a placating tone. "Serafina, darling, we can clarify. "Oh, I believe sufficient explanation has already been provided," Bellwether retorted swiftly. "In fact, explanations have been ongoing for years. At every dinner function, every social occasion, every corporate gathering, your collective character has been made abundantly clear." She rose, deliberately adjusting her designer suit. "The board of directors is currently assembled in the adjacent room," she announced, "prepared to ratify the consequences of your own actions, immediate termination for cause. This applies to all of you." Her gaze met each man's directly, lingering finally on Sterling. "Perhaps gratitude is owed," she added, "for making this executive decision remarkably straightforward." "You lack the authority," Sterling protested, his voice reportedly weak. "I am your husband." Accounts describe Bellwether offering a chilling smile as she deliberately removed her wedding band, placing it decisively on the polished table surface. "Actually," she countered, "as of this morning I am solely your CEO, and you," she paused for effect, "are terminated." Uniformed security personnel stepped forward as Bellwether turned to depart. Behind her, the initial sounds of frantic protests, veiled threats, and desperate negotiations began, but she proceeded without hesitation towards the main boardroom. The significant task of restructuring her executive team awaited. An empire, after all, required diligent management. The subsequent board meeting was reportedly efficient and conclusive. 12 board members observed as Serafina Bellwether formally signed the termination papers, their expressions reflecting a blend of respect and astonishment at finally encountering their notoriously private CEO face to face. However, this marked only the inception of the corporate overhaul. While security personnel escorted Sterling and his dismissed associates from the Apex Innovations headquarters, Bellwether withdrew to her private executive suite, the enigmatic top-floor office that had fueled speculation for years. Isabel Moreau, her trusted aide, followed, digital tablet active, prepared to initiate the subsequent operational phase. "All network and building access credentials have been revoked," Moreau confirmed, navigating through security interfaces. IT is concurrently freezing associated financial accounts and initiating comprehensive data backups. Our legal department has dispatched cease and desist notices to preempt potential retaliatory actions. Bellwether positioned herself before the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows, observing Sterling and his former colleagues being guided towards waiting vehicles far below. Even from that significant height, their physical postures conveyed profound shock and disorientation. "Regarding the residence," she inquired, referencing the luxurious penthouse Sterling mistakenly believed he co-owned. "Our security detail is currently on site, securing the premises and changing all locks. Your personal effects have been relocated to the primary penthouse suite per your instructions." Moreau continued. "As for Mr. Sterling's possessions," a brief, knowing smile reportedly touched her lips. "They are scheduled for delivery to his mother's residence before the end of the day." Bellwether acknowledged the update. The irony was noted, considering Sterling's frequent boasts to his family about financially supporting his struggling wife. "Furthermore, divorce proceedings are being initiated concurrently," Moreau added. "The prenuptial agreement he insisted upon is legally robust. He believed he was safeguarding his own limited assets, unaware he was contractually relinquishing any claim to the vast Bellwether fortune tied to Apex Innovations." Almost immediately, an alert appeared on Bellwether's private terminal. Victor Sterling had already commenced attempts at reputation management, posting vague statements on professional networking platforms, citing strategic disagreements as the reason for his departure from Apex Innovations. Witnessing the unfolding digital counteroffensive, Serafina Bellwether observed as Isabel Moreau's specialized team swiftly neutralized Victor Sterling's attempts at online reputation management. A precisely worded official press release was disseminated, reiterating Apex Innovations' unwavering commitment to a zero-tolerance policy regarding workplace harassment and discrimination. His professional networking profile still lists his title as Vice President of Operations, Bellwether noted dryly. Moreau's response was immediate and efficient. Rectified, she confirmed, her fingers rapidly manipulating her tablet interface. Bellwether settled behind her primary executive desk, not the concealed workstation within her penthouse study, and began reviewing the comprehensive contingency protocols previously established. Sterling and his dismissed cohort, while arrogant, were not unintelligent. Their initial shock and wounded egos would inevitably transition into anger, potentially motivating retaliatory actions. Their non-compete agreements have been formally activated, Moreau reported. They are legally barred from employment within this industry sector for a minimum of 3 years. Furthermore, we have proactively informed key industry competitors regarding the specific circumstances of their termination. No credible organization will engage them. Bellwether accessed security footage documenting the termination exit procedures. Reports detailed Sterling's persistent denial, escalating to threats of exposing sensitive information. Gregory Thorne reportedly broke down upon realizing the forfeiture of his substantial stock options. The other dismissed executives oscillated between desperate pleas and aggressive posturing. Regarding their ongoing projects, Bellwether inquired, Donovan has already implemented transition teams, Moreau assured. No critical operational functions will experience disruption. She paused briefly. However, a thorough audit of all projects and accounts they managed over the past year is strongly recommended. Extend that audit scope to 3 years, Bellwether corrected, recalling fragments of overheard conversations referencing questionable accounting practices. And flag any client accounts with whom they maintained significant personal contact. Her secure phone signaled an incoming call, Sterling, utilizing his personal number. She declined the call, observing his number join the expanding list of blocked contacts. His former associates had also attempted communication, likely seeking negotiation leverage or severance settlements. Should a company-wide internal statement be issued? Moreau inquired. Bellwether considered the internal ramifications. By this point, awareness of the CEO's true identity, as Sterling's supposedly unqualified wife, would be spreading throughout the building, the narrative likely becoming increasingly embellished with each retelling. Schedule an all-hands meeting for tomorrow morning, she decided. It is time the employees meet their actual CEO, distinct from the distorted image perpetuated by Sterling. A discreet notification appeared on Bellwether's primary monitor. Surveillance confirmed Sterling's arrival at his mother's residence. Security feeds depicted him standing amidst boxes containing his personal effects, his mother's expression reportedly shifting from initial confusion to evident dismay as he recounted the morning's events. Tracking data indicates his company vehicle remains located within our corporate parking structure, Moreau added. Security is positioned to retrieve it. Bellwether nodded, turning her attention to the substantial stack of documents demanding immediate action. Organizational structures required revision, responsibilities needed reallocation, and proactive damage control measures were necessary with major corporate clients. One additional item, Moreau interjected, her tone softening slightly. The upcoming charity gala next month, the event where you initially encountered Mr. Sterling. Cancel my attendance, Bellwether interrupted decisively. However, double the standard corporate donation, to be made anonymously. The remainder of the afternoon was consumed by a rapid succession of executive meetings, critical decision-making, and strategic planning initiatives. Through various internal security feeds, Bellwether monitored the efficient removal of Sterling's office contents, personal items meticulously inventoried and dispatched, his prominently located parking space, a source of frequent boasting, already reassigned. As evening descended over the metropolis skyline, Moreau presented a final status report. All terminated individuals are adhering to their mandatory gardening leave periods within their residences. Communications are under surveillance. No significant anomalies detected thus far. They are currently processing the shock, Bellwether finished the thought. Allow approximately 24 hours, then anticipate more calculated reactions. She leaned back in her executive chair, finally permitting herself to acknowledge the profound impact of the day's events. In under 12 hours, she had discarded a fabricated identity, dissolved a marriage, terminated 5 senior executives, and assumed a public role as CEO. Was the outcome justified? Moreau asked, momentarily deviating from strict professional protocol. Bellwether reflected on the years of veiled condescension, the observations of Sterling and his clique undermining others' aspirations, the casual disregard they displayed towards anyone perceived as inferior. Revisit that question in 1 week, she replied, refocusing on her monitors. Significant work remained, managing a multinational corporation and meticulously rebuilding its internal culture and external reputation. True vindication, she understood, extended beyond a single dramatic confrontation. It involved ensuring those individuals lacked the capacity to inflict further harm. The following morning commenced with intense activity. The company-wide all-hands meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m., but Bellwether arrived at the Apex Innovations headquarters at dawn. Strategic preparations were necessary before addressing the workforce. "We have registered activity," Moreau reported, entering the CEO's office, tablet in hand. Sterling attempted contact with the Thompson account representatives at 0300 hours. Fortunately, all external client communication channels were previously secured. Bellwether accessed the real-time monitoring interface. Within the initial 12 hours post-termination, each dismissed executive had acted predictably. Gregory Thorne had attempted unauthorized downloads of proprietary client databases prior to complete access revocation. Donovan, her internal operative, had meticulously documented each infraction. Regarding their severance compensation, Bellwether inquired, already anticipating the response. Forfeited based on documented gross misconduct. Our legal team has prepared comprehensive justification briefs, Moreau confirmed, her fingers moving swiftly across the tablet screen. Sterling attempted access to his corporate investment portfolio at midnight. Reports indicate surprise upon discovering the worthlessness of his stock options. A faint smile touched Bellwether's lips, recalling Sterling's numerous boasts about his company's shareholdings during social gatherings. He had evidently neglected to review the specific clauses pertaining to termination for misconduct. "And the status of the others?" she prompted. "2 have already initiated contact with legal counsel specializing in wrongful termination." As Victor Sterling scrambled to salvage his reputation online, Apex Innovations' formidable counterintelligence machine, directed by the ever-vigilant Isabel Moreau, launched a devastating truth offensive. A meticulously crafted press release highlighting the corporation's strict zero-tolerance policy towards workplace misconduct, including harassment and discrimination, effectively silenced Sterling's pathetic attempts at spin control. Sources confirm Serafina Bellwether noted his professional networking profile, defiantly still claimed his VP title. "Not for long," Moreau is reported to have declared, neutralizing the inaccuracy with swift digital precision. Back behind her actual executive desk, a far cry from the hidden command center within her Metropolis penthouse, Bellwether began activating the next phase of her meticulously prepared contingency strategy. Sterling and his disgraced cronies, while arrogant, were known quantities. Their wounded pride, insiders predicted, would inevitably curdle into vindictive rage and potential corporate sabotage. But Bellwether was steps ahead. "Their non-compete clauses are ironclad and active," Moreau confirmed. "Industry exile is guaranteed for a minimum of 3 years. Furthermore, Apex Innovations circulated notices to all major industry players detailing the precise, unsavory circumstances surrounding the terminations. Reputable firms, sources claim, wouldn't touch them now." Damning security footage from the executive's final exit interviews was reviewed. Sterling, reportedly trapped in denial, resorted to empty threats of exposing company secrets. Gregory Thorne dissolved into tears upon grasping the total loss of his valuable stock options. The others, reports state, veered wildly between desperate pleading and impotent threats. Meanwhile, operational continuity was seamless. Donovan has already deployed transition teams for all affected projects, Moreau assured Bellwether. Critical operations remain unaffected. A crucial audit was ordered, expanding its scope significantly. Make it 3 years, Bellwether commanded, recalling whispers of creative accounting overheard during past company events. Flag every client they had personal dealings with. Incoming calls from Sterling's personal number were immediately blocked, joining a growing list of denied contacts from his equally desperate former colleagues, likely angling for settlements that would never materialize. The question of a company-wide announcement arose. By now, whispers of the CEO's true identity, Sterling's supposedly incapable wife, were undoubtedly electrifying the corporate grapevine, the tale escalating with each retelling. Schedule an all-hands meeting, tomorrow morning, Bellwether decreed. It's time Apex employees meet their real CEO, not the caricature Sterling painted. Another surveillance alert flashed. Sterling had arrived at his mother's residence. Security feeds captured the humiliating scene, Sterling standing amidst boxes of his hastily packed belongings. His mother's expression reportedly shifting from bewilderment to outright horror as the day's disastrous events were explained. His luxury company vehicle, tracked via GPS, remained abandoned in the Apex parking garage. Security was dispatched for its retrieval. Bellwether then turned to the mountain of executive decisions demanding immediate attention. Organizational charts redrawn, responsibilities reassigned, proactive damage control initiated with key clients. A final detail: the upcoming High Society Charity Gala, the very event where she first encountered Sterling years ago under her assumed persona. Cancel the reservation, Bellwether instructed Moreau, but double our corporate donation. Anonymously. The afternoon became a whirlwind of strategic action. Security feeds documented the swift, impersonal clearing of Sterling's former office. Personal effects cataloged and shipped, his coveted, status symbol parking space already allocated to another executive. As dusk settled over Metropolis, Moreau delivered a final intelligence summary. All terminated parties are confined to their residences under gardening leave protocols. Communications remain monitored. No significant hostile actions detected yet. They're reeling from the shock, Bellwether finished the assessment. Grant them 24 hours. The real reactions will commence then. Leaning back, the immense weight of the preceding 12 hours settled. A discarded identity, a terminated marriage, 5 executive firings, and a sudden thrust into the corporate spotlight as CEO. Was the staggering cost justified? When probed by Moreau in a rare moment of personal candor, Bellwether deferred judgment. Years of calculated humiliation, witnessing Sterling and his ilk sabotage careers for sport, their casual cruelty, the memories were fresh. Ask me again next week, she replied, turning back to the glowing monitors. There was an empire to run, a corporate culture to rebuild. Revenge, Bellwether understood, wasn't merely a single dramatic climax. It was the systematic dismantling of their capacity to ever harm again. The following dawn brought renewed intensity. The critical all-hands meeting loomed, but Bellwether was already orchestrating preemptive maneuvers. Movement detected, Moreau reported, striding into the CEO's office. Sterling attempted contact with the Thompson account lead at 3 a.m. The attempt failed. Client communications had been locked down hours prior. Bellwether reviewed the monitoring dashboard. Predictably, Thorne had tried illicitly downloading client lists before his access was fully severed. Donovan had logged every keystroke. Their severance. Voided, Moreau confirmed. Documented misconduct. Legal has finalized the briefs. Sterling's midnight attempt to access his investment accounts also failed, met with the harsh reality of worthless stock options. A detail he'd clearly overlooked amidst his dinner party boasts, never absorbing the fine print regarding conduct clauses. As for the others, 2 have already engaged legal counsel, Moreau reported. The predictable, futile fightback had begun. Every pathetic maneuver they attempt merely fortifies our position, Serafina Bellwether reportedly stated, gazing out at the metropolis skyline painted by the setting sun. Somewhere within that sprawling cityscape, 5 enraged, dismissed executives were slowly comprehending the totality of their defeat. Insiders claim, Bellwether coolly observed, their game concluded yesterday. Mine commences now. Turning to her ever-present Lieutenant, Isabel Moreau, she issued the chilling directive. Tomorrow, Isabel, initiate Phase 2. Let them experience the desperation of job hunting. The chilling analogy reportedly followed. In chess, the queen reigns supreme. I have navigated this board long before they even grasped their status as mere pawns. Dawn broke not with rest, but with strategic analysis. Bellwether was observed reviewing surveillance footage captured the previous night from an upscale downtown bar where Victor Sterling and his disgraced cohort had convened. Their furious, alcohol-fueled deliberations provided precisely the actionable intelligence Apex Innovations required to solidify its impenetrable legal defense. They intend to sue, Moreau announced, entering the CEO's office bearing 2 cups of coffee. Sterling initiated contact with 3 prominent law firms this morning. Bellwether accepted the offered beverage, reportedly concealing a triumphant smile. Display the intelligence. Moreau activated the morning's surveillance summary. Sterling had indeed been active, but the stunning reality emerged. Each contacted law firm maintained complex, discrete affiliations with Apex Innovations through a labyrinth of shell corporations. Any attempt by Sterling to retain their services would immediately collapse due to insurmountable conflicts of interest, a masterfully orchestrated legal dead end. Furthermore, Moreau continued, he persists in contacting major clients, focusing particularly on the Thompson account. Forward the recordings, Bellwether commanded without hesitation. The audio files filled the secure office. Sterling's voice, still saturated with that signature entitled confidence, attempted to persuade key clients of his alleged wrongful termination, painting Bellwether as a manipulative usurper and claiming Apex Innovations was now dangerously unstable under her leadership. Mr. Thompson's verbatim response, Bellwether inquired, anticipating the outcome. Moreau played the subsequent audio segment. Thompson's tone was reportedly glacial. James, your wife's strategic proposal presented last week, the very one you arrogantly dismissed. It was brilliant. Yes, we were informed. Cease all further contact with this office. A devastating, unequivocal public rebuke. Bellwether accessed the secure evidence repository via her terminal. For over a year, Apex had systematically constructed an unassailable case against Sterling and his inner circle. Every documented instance of workplace harassment, every discriminatory remark captured, every abuse of corporate power, all meticulously logged and verified. The board requests an immediate update, Moreau noted, expressing concerns regarding potential negative publicity. Bellwether's directive was swift. Schedule an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. Compile everything from the preceding 3 years. Emails, encrypted meeting recordings, suspicious expense reports. It is time to demonstrate unequivocally why this executive house cleaning was not merely necessary, but critical. The morning unfolded as a series of decisive strategic actions. While Sterling and his associates hemorrhaged personal funds on futile legal consultations, Apex Innovations systematically reinforced its defenses. Human Resources unearthed previously suppressed complaint files buried under the former regime's mismanagement. IT specialists recovered accidentally deleted incriminating emails. Former employees, hearing of the regime change, began voluntarily contacting Apex, offering sworn testimony detailing the toxic, hostile environment they had been forced to endure. Sterling's mother has escalated her social media offensive, Moreau reported dryly. She is now publicly alleging you seduced her son as part of a protracted, calculated corporate takeover scheme. Bellwether reportedly laughed aloud, accessing the digital copy of the prenuptial agreement Sterling himself had demanded. "Dispatch a certified copy to her legal representatives immediately," she instructed. "Highlight the sections where her son insisted on protecting his limited assets from his supposedly gold-digging wife." By midday, Apex's formidable legal team had assembled a devastatingly comprehensive brief. Every instance of Sterling boasting about manipulating stock options, every recorded conversation detailing strategies to sideline qualified female candidates, every documented misuse of company resources, all presented with irrefutable evidence. Then came a shocking development. "Surveillance picked up something highly significant," Moreau reported, rushing back into the CEO's office post-lunch. "They conducted a clandestine meeting with an executive from our primary competitor, Atlas Tech, late last night." Bellwether immediately accessed the high-fidelity audio-visual feed from the planted surveillance devices. Sterling's voice was clearly audible, brazenly offering to divulge proprietary Apex Innovations trade secrets in exchange for lucrative executive positions for himself and his ousted associates. "Transmit encrypted copies of this recording to their respective legal counsels," Bellwether ordered coolly, "and dispatch another copy directly to the Atlas Tech Board of Directors. Let us observe the rapidity with which they publicly distance themselves from this treasonous proposal." The afternoon's emergency board meeting became a masterclass in corporate power consolidation. Bellwether systematically presented the overwhelming evidence justifying each termination. The board's initial concerns reportedly evaporated, replaced by stunned realization at the depth of the corruption Bellwether had decisively excised. But the final blow was yet to land. "There is more," she announced, bringing up detailed financial analyses. "We have traced significant patterns of irregular payments funneled through their corporate expense accounts. Certain transactions," she noted pointedly, "would undoubtedly attract considerable interest from the Securities and Exchange Commission." Just as the board absorbed the implications of potential federal investigation, Moreau interjected urgently, monitoring her tablet. "Sterling is en route to the executive floor. He somehow persuaded lobby security to grant him access." Bellwether reportedly smiled, pulling up the live lobby security camera feed on the main boardroom screen. "No, Isabel," she corrected calmly. "I authorized security to permit his entry. Observe." On the screen, Victor Sterling stormed through the lobby, his expensive suit visibly rumpled, his face flushed with a mixture of rage and alcohol. He clutched a folder undoubtedly containing what he believed was his damaging counter-evidence. "Should I dispatch security to intercept him?" Moreau asked, tense. "Not yet," Bellwether replied evenly. "Let us first evaluate the supposed leverage he believes he possesses." Mere minutes later, the boardroom doors burst open, and Victor Sterling stood before them, breathing heavily, ready for a confrontation he could not possibly win. Victor Sterling's triumphant expression reportedly dissolved the instant he burst into the Apex Innovations boardroom, only to find Serafina Bellwether coolly presiding at the head of the table. "I possess evidence," he announced dramatically, brandishing a folder. "Evidence proving she manipulated this entire situation." "Are you referring to evidence that I founded this corporation, constructed it from inception, and successfully managed it while you claimed credit for my strategic initiatives? Bellwether countered, rising slowly to her full height. The temperature in the room dropped noticeably. Or perhaps, she continued, her voice lethally calm, you mean evidence documenting your extensive misconduct over several years, gathered while you openly mocked my supposed lack of employment? The assembled board members remained silent witnesses as Sterling's bluster visibly deflated. You orchestrated a trap, he stammered, accusations replacing his earlier confidence. Incorrect, Victor, Bellwether corrected sharply. You constructed this trap yourself. Every instance you demeaned a job applicant, every time you deliberately bypassed a qualified female employee, every occasion you laughed about your unemployed wife, you meticulously built the case against yourself. With a subtle nod from Bellwether, Isabel Moreau activated the main boardroom displays. Sterling watched, aghast, as years of his recorded transgressions, the mockery, the discrimination, the abuse of power, unfolded in undeniable high definition. Your options, Bellwether stated with finality, are straightforward. Depart immediately, adhere strictly to the non-compete agreement, and retain what little remains of your professional dignity. Alternatively, contest this, and observe as every sordid detail of your behavior becomes a matter of public record and legal scrutiny. You cannot, Sterling began, protesting weakly. Security, Bellwether interrupted, pressing a concealed button on the console beneath the table. Kindly escort Mr. Sterling from the premises, and ensure, she added firmly, his lobby access credentials are permanently revoked this time. As security personnel efficiently removed the sputtering Sterling, Bellwether turned back to the stunned board. Now, she announced smoothly, pivoting back to critical business, regarding those irregular financial transactions. The remainder of the afternoon was dedicated to cementing Apex Innovations' legal fortifications. Every piece of damning evidence was meticulously catalogued, witness testimonies formally recorded, and all pertinent documents notarized. By nightfall, the case against Sterling and his cohort was reportedly so overwhelmingly conclusive that reputable legal analysts confirmed no legitimate law firm would dare entertain their claims. They are convening again this evening, Moreau reported as darkness enveloped the city. Same location. Excellent, Bellwether replied, reviewing the latest surveillance authorization request. Let us ascertain what further incriminating evidence they are willing to provide voluntarily. After all, she mused, a predatory glint reportedly in her eyes. The most effective strategy often involves allowing adversaries to believe they are gaining ground right up until the precise moment they realize they have lost everything. The subsequent bar surveillance yielded results exceeding all expectations. Fueled by expensive liquor and simmering resentment, Sterling and his associates spent hours inadvertently divulging years of corporate malfeasance. Replay that specific segment, Bellwether instructed Moreau the following morning, leaning intently towards the monitor. Through the sophisticated audio feed, Sterling's intoxicated, slurred voice echoed in the CEO's office. Recall the merger initiative last year? The one that positioned us as corporate geniuses? Allow me to elaborate on the actual methodology employed. What ensued was a detailed, boastful confession of criminal insider trading, complete with specific names, dates, and illicit financial figures. Transmit this recording immediately to our primary legal counsel, Bellwether ordered decisively. And, she added, forward an anonymous tip, along with the unedited audio file, to the Securities and Exchange Commission. It is time, she declared, to orchestrate our perfect storm. Moreau's fingers flew across her secure tablet. Sterling has already initiated selling off his personal stock holdings, she reported. The others are mirroring his actions. Perfect, Bellwether stated, accessing the pre-planned contingency files. Activate Protocol Thunder. Protocol Thunder represented the meticulously planned culmination of months of strategic preparation, a multi-phased operation designed to ensnare Sterling and his associates within their own web of greed and deceit. Phase 1 commenced instantly. Leak details of the impending merger investigation to the financial press, Bellwether instructed. Ensure the leak appears to originate from a disgruntled, anonymous former employee. Within hours, the fabricated story dominated financial news outlets. Apex Innovations' stock experienced a minor temporary dip, precisely as engineered. Sterling and his already paranoid cohort, monitoring their dwindling investments, would interpret this as validation of their fears and an urgent signal to liquidate their holdings before further decline. Panic has set in, Moreau reported, monitoring encrypted communications. All 5 are concurrently contacting their financial brokers. Bellwether observed the live market trading monitors as the targets frantically dumped their Apex shares, desperately attempting to preempt the anticipated fallout from the leaked investigation. With each panicked sale, they unknowingly deepened their legal exposure, selling based on what they believed was non-public negative information. Now, Bellwether commanded, signaling Moreau, release Phase 2. An official announcement was disseminated company-wide and to all major news syndicates. Apex Innovations declared a significant corporate restructuring initiative coupled with major expansion plans. The market reaction was immediate and positive. Apex stock surged upwards within minutes. However, Sterling and his associates had already sold their shares at a substantial loss, creating a textbook case of attempted market manipulation driven by insider knowledge. Simultaneously, a high-priority call connected. Mr. Thompson from the Antitrust Commission is holding on line 1, Moreau announced. Bellwether took the call on speakerphone. Ms. Bellwether, the official voice stated, we have received some extremely compelling information concerning last year's merger activities. Indeed, Bellwether replied smoothly, maintaining perfect composure. We have been conducting a thorough internal investigation into that matter ourselves. I would be pleased to share our comprehensive findings, she added pointedly, which include some rather illuminating surveillance footage obtained from a local bar just last night. The intricate pieces of Bellwether's endgame clicked decisively into place. By midday, the SEC had formally launched an investigation into the suspicious trading activities of Sterling and his associates. The Antitrust Commission initiated a review of the previous year's merger. Apex Innovations' stock price soared as the market enthusiastically responded to the expansion announcement. Sterling is attempting international departure, Moreau reported urgently, monitoring surveillance feeds. His passport has been unexpectedly flagged by airport authorities. Bellwether allowed herself a brief, satisfied smile. How profoundly unfortunate for him, she remarked dryly. And the others? The implication hung heavy in the air. The net had closed. The game was over. Bellwether had won. Utterly. The fallout continued unabated. Reports flooded in detailing Michael Thorne's public breakdown at his brokerage firm. Others among the disgraced cohort scrambled, retaining high-powered criminal defense lawyers. One executive was reportedly observed making futile attempts to digitally erase his email history, blissfully unaware that Apex Innovations' internal security had already secured comprehensive archives. The scandal's shockwaves expanded beyond Apex. Anonymous tips, strategically disseminated by Bellwether's team, triggered investigations at 3 other major corporations where Victor Sterling and his associates had previously held executive positions. Sensing vulnerability, former colleagues from those firms began emerging, eager to contribute their own accounts of misconduct under the disgraced executive's prior leadership. Legal representatives for the ousted group initiated contact, proposing settlement discussions. The request reached Serafina Bellwether directly. Her response, delivered through Isabel Moreau, was reportedly succinct and brutal. Decline. Let them perspire. By evening, the perfect storm Bellwether had meticulously engineered reached peak intensity. The Securities and Exchange Commission formally broadened its investigation to encompass their personal trading accounts. The Antitrust Commission enacted an immediate freeze on their personal assets, pending a full review. Compounding their woes, 3 separate class action lawsuits materialized, filed by former Apex employees alleging systematic discrimination and a hostile work environment fostered under their management. Intriguingly, Victor Sterling's mother abruptly ceased her vocal social media campaign defending her son. Sources speculate the widely reported insider trading allegations proved too toxic even for maternal loyalty to spin positively. Surveillance data confirmed Sterling himself made increasingly frantic, failed attempts to access his now frozen financial accounts. When Moreau inquired if the damning bar surveillance footage should be leaked to the media, Bellwether reportedly paused. Not yet. Observe their reaction to tomorrow's developments first. Tomorrow represented the final, devastating phase of Protocol Thunder. While Sterling and his associates were consumed by mounting investigations and inaccessible funds, Apex Innovations, operating through untraceable shell companies, had quietly reacquired the substantial blocks of Apex stock they had panic-sold days earlier. Furthermore, a major game-changing government contract, negotiated in absolute secrecy for months, was scheduled for announcement upon market open. Adding to the personal turmoil, Moreau reported that multiple wives of the disgraced executives were initiating contact with divorce attorneys. Faced with potential financial ruin stemming directly from their husbands' fraudulent activities, marital loyalty appeared to evaporate rapidly. Bellwether noted the supreme irony. The prenuptial agreement Sterling had arrogantly insisted upon to shield his meager assets now served to protect her vast fortune from his catastrophic legal entanglements. Transmit formal meeting invitations to all 5, Bellwether instructed Moreau. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Moreau expressed skepticism regarding their attendance. "Oh, they will attend," Bellwether countered, her reflection reportedly hard and resolute in the darkening office window. "Because at this juncture, I represent their sole desperate path to potential survival." As night descended upon Metropolis, Bellwether reviewed the script for the final act. Within 12 hours, Sterling and his former colleagues would be seated in her office, broken, desperate, facing an ultimatum: total annihilation versus merely complete and utter humiliation. 5 temporary visitor badges lay ready. The perfect storm wasn't merely about destruction, it was about ensuring the targets acknowledged the blinding flash of lightning before the inevitable deafening thunderclap. Precisely at 9 a.m., the grim procession began. One by one, Victor Sterling and his former associates entered Serafina Bellwether's executive office. They were pale imitations of their former arrogant selves. Expensive suits appeared disheveled, faces etched with sleeplessness, and the crushing weight of their predicament. "Gentlemen," Bellwether greeted them coolly from behind her imposing desk, "reports indicate you have all experienced a rather eventful week." Sterling reportedly avoided eye contact. Michael Thorne trembled visibly. The others stared numbly at their visitor identification badges, seemingly struggling to process the totality of their fall from grace. "The board is convened," Bellwether announced, rising. "Shall we proceed?" They followed her in silence, resembling prisoners en route to sentencing, towards the main executive boardroom. Through the expansive glass walls, they witnessed the intimidating assembly within: the full Apex Innovations Board of Directors, the company's senior legal counsel, and, ominously, several official representatives from the Securities and Exchange Commission. "Before proceedings commence," Bellwether stated, pausing deliberately at the doorway, I require your complete understanding. The events of the next hour will dictate not only the remnants of your professional existence, but, more critically, your personal liberty. An absolute silence descended as they entered the room. Moreau stood prepared by the main presentation screen. The SEC officials had notebooks open, pens ready. Members of the board, distinguished guests, Bellwether began, taking her commanding position at the head of the vast table. We convene today to address multiple critical issues pertaining to corporate governance, significant financial misconduct, and the systematic abuse of executive power. With a nod to Moreau, the presentation commenced. On the large screens, the devastating compilation of evidence began to play. Irrefutable trading records, damning surveillance footage, incriminating email chains, recorded conversations. A comprehensive catalog of their self-inflicted destruction. As is now evident, Bellwether continued, her voice steady as Sterling physically slumped lower in his chair, the established pattern of misconduct extends significantly beyond mere workplace impropriety. We are examining substantial evidence indicative of securities fraud, felony insider trading, and criminal conspiracy. The SEC representatives, observers noted, began taking copious notes. The final judgment was imminent. The SEC representatives furiously scribbled notes, their presence intensifying the already suffocating tension. Board members reportedly maintained expressions carved from granite. Michael Thorne looked moments from collapsing. Yet, amidst the crushing weight of evidence, Alexandra Chin paused, allowing the silence to stretch, amplifying the dread. However, she announced, her voice cutting through the charged atmosphere, Reynolds Technologies is prepared to extend a limited amnesty agreement, a one-time-only offer, non-negotiable. That single word, amnesty, jolted them. 5 heads snapped upwards, eyes darting, a desperate flicker of hope warring visibly with deep-seated suspicion. Aide Sarah swiftly distributed thick document folders to each disgraced executive. The conditions are unambiguous, Chin explained, her tone leaving no room for misinterpretation. Absolute cooperation with all ongoing investigations, full, unreserved disclosure of all misconduct, whether previously uncovered or not, complete restitution of all profits derived from illicit trading activities, and, she paused for maximum impact, a formal, public acknowledgement of your actions. You demand a confession? James Morrison finally found his voice, though reports indicate it cracked under the strain. I demand you confront the consequences of your own choices, Chin corrected sharply. Affix your signatures to these agreements now, and Reynolds Technologies will refrain from pursuing criminal charges directly. Refuse. Her gaze swept across their panicked faces. And rest assured, the SEC possesses sufficient evidence to guarantee each of you spends significant time residing in federal correctional facilities. The board remained impassive observers as the 5 men frantically scanned the documents, their expensive lawyers, seated behind them, offering only grim, confirmatory nods. You have precisely 5 minutes to deliberate, Chin announced, consulting her wristwatch pointedly. Thereafter, this offer is irrevocably withdrawn, and we proceed with full prosecutorial force. The ensuing minutes were thick with desperate, hushed consultations between the executives and their legal counsel. Observers could pinpoint the exact moment each man's resolve shattered, their signatures appearing one by one on the damning agreements. James Morrison was the last, his hand reportedly trembling uncontrollably as he scrawled his name. Their eyes met across the polished table as he pushed the folder back towards her. In his gaze, onlookers witnessed the final, utter extinguishment of his lifelong arrogance, the dawning, sickening realization of the sheer scale of his defeat. Excellent, Chin stated coolly, gathering the signed documents. Sarah will now escort each of you to separate conference rooms to commence your depositions with the SEC representatives. As the defeated men were led away, Chin turned seamlessly back to the board. "And now," she announced, pivoting immediately to business, "let us discuss the future trajectory of Reynolds Technologies." The following hour involved a decisive outlining of the corporation's path forward, implementing robust, new corporate governance structures, enhanced compliance protocols, and a complete strategic restructuring of the executive leadership team. The board, having witnessed firsthand the clinical precision with which Chin had neutralized the crisis, unanimously approved every proposal. "One final directive," Chin added as the meeting concluded. "I require it officially recorded that every employee adversely affected by the discriminatory practices of the previous management will be individually reviewed for potential reinstatement or appropriate compensation." Board approval was instantaneous, a negligible cost compared to the public relations catastrophe Chin had deftly averted. Later, within the secure confines of her executive office, Sarah delivered the preliminary deposition summaries. "They are divulging information freely," she reported, "each attempting self-preservation by implicating the others." Chin scanned the documents, noting the predictable swift collapse of their former alliances. "Ensure every confession is meticulously recorded and witnessed," she instructed. "We permit no subsequent retractions." Through her expansive office window, Chin observed James Morrison being escorted to a waiting vehicle, his career obliterated, his reputation in ruins. His lawyer was already engaged in a phone call, presumably initiating the desperate, likely futile salvage operation for his client's shattered life. "Their illicit trading gains?" Chin inquired. "Currently under forensic accounting review," Sarah confirmed. "Initial projections indicate each will be compelled to repay several $1,000,000. Chin nodded, turning back to her desk. Reynolds Technologies stock had surged 15% following the news of the decisive governance changes. Financial news outlets were already rebranding the corporation as a paragon of corporate accountability. "Schedule a company-wide address for tomorrow," Chin directed. "It is time to rebuild the foundations they attempted to demolish." Sarah paused at the doorway, posing the recurring question. Was the outcome worth the immense effort? Chin considered the years of observing them crush aspirations, bully subordinates, and mock anyone perceived as lesser. She thought of the careers derailed, the lives impacted. "Pose that question to the individuals regaining their employment," she replied evenly. "Inquire of the women who will no longer endure workplace harassment. Ask anyone who believed justice would remain perpetually elusive." After all, she reflected, the most profound form of retribution isn't merely punitive, it lies in enacting positive, lasting change for those left in the wake of the destruction. The days following the decisive board meeting unfolded with the precision of a meticulously arranged sequence. Each morning brought further damning revelations, each afternoon delivered fresh consequences, each evening marked new strategic victories. "James Morrison's criminal defense attorney has formally withdrawn from the case," Sarah announced, entering Chin's office with the morning intelligence briefing. Apparently, Morrison attempted to recant significant portions of his sworn confession. Chin accessed the deposition room surveillance feed. "Transmit the complete unedited video recording of his voluntary confession to his former counsel," she instructed calmly, along with the footage documenting his previous lawyer, advising him of his Miranda rights on 3 separate occasions. The repercussions continued to ripple outwards. 3 other major corporations, alerted by the unfolding scandal, launched internal investigations, uncovering similar patterns of misconduct perpetrated by Morrison and his associates during their previous tenures at those firms. The dominoes were falling exactly as Alexandra Chin had planned. The professional network supporting Victor Sterling and his disgraced cohort disintegrated with astonishing speed.